Sorry, just one. Wonderful. And let me open up I'll share the PowerPoint presentation with you. Okay, is that showing up okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, everyone. Folks are popping in. Okay, so we are ready to get started. So good afternoon, everyone, on January 18th, 2023, the day the Creative Recovery LA application is now online. We are so happy that you are here with us today and preparing your online applications. My name is Angie Gaspar Milanovic, and I'm the Director of Grants and Professional Development. And I am joined by Yvonne Gallardo. If you'd like to introduce yourself, Yvonne.
Hi, everyone. Yvonne Gallardo with Community Partners. Happy to be here with you all. Thanks, Angie.
Wonderful. And let me, oops. Okay, so we are going to start off with a LA County land acknowledgement. The County of Los Angeles recognizes that we occupy land originally and still inhabited and cared for by the Tonga, Tataviam, Serrano, and Quiche and Chumash peoples. We honor and pay respect to their elders and descendants, past and present and emerging, as they continue their stewardship of these lands and waters. We acknowledge that settler colonization resulted in land seizure, disease, subjugation, slavery, relocation, broken promises, genocide, and multi-generational trauma. This acknowledgement demonstrates our responsibility and commitment to truth, healing, and reconciliation, and to elevating the stories, culture, and community of the original inhabitants of Los Angeles County. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on these ancestral lands. We are dedicated to growing and sustaining relationships with Native peoples and local governments, including, in no particular order, the Fernandeño Tataviam Band of Mission Indians, the Gabrielino Tonga Indians of California Tribal Council, the Gabrielino Tonga San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians, the Gabrielino Band of Mission Indians, Quiche Nation, San Manuel Band of Mission Indians, and the San Fernando Band of Mission Indians. To learn more about the First Peoples of Los Angeles County, please visit the Los Angeles County City Native American Indian Commission website at lanic.lacounty.gov. There will be more information that we will be sharing with the field in the coming weeks, and we're very excited to share more information about our work with the Native American Indian Commission that is now part of, but separate, a separate entity of the LA County Department of Arts and Culture. So in terms of our agenda today, we are going to give you a program overview of Creative Recovery LA. We'll share the timeline. We're going to review eligibility requirements. We'll also share some tips on preparing a successful application. And Yvonne is also going to go through accessing the online application. And we will, I believe, have ample time for question and answers today. And if you've had a chance to kind of dig in already, today will be a great time to ask those questions. And then this Friday afternoon, we're going to hold a virtual office hours session. So that will not be a workshop. It'll be time where you can just come with your questions. We can go into a private Zoom room. You can ask your questions and we can discuss any aspects of the application that you're interested in. So in terms of
Angie,
I'm sorry, yes.
Hey, it's Kristen. I don't know if you can see me. Before you dive in, I only want to say a quick hello because I'm not going to be able to stay, but I just wanted to wish everybody well. I'm Kristen Sakota, Director of the Department of Arts and Culture, and Angie, who is our brilliant Director of Grants and Professional Development, and our fine colleague, Yvonne Gallardo, are going to have a lot of information for you. So I'm going to just say a quick hello, and then let you use the time to dig in. But I just want to say we are thrilled at the Department of Arts and Culture to be launching this unprecedented $26 million initiative. And it's incredible to see such a diversity of organizations, even just here on today's webinar. So wishing you all the best, and really excited and looking forward to supporting the field. And we're thrilled that this is opening today. So thanks so much for your interest. Thanks for being here. Thank you, Angie.
Thank you so much, Kristen. I'm sorry I didn't see you
I know,
previously. Thanks for stopping in to say hi. We appreciate it. Okay, so as Kristen shared, the purpose of Creative Recovery LA is to provide relief and recovery aid to the nonprofit arts and culture sector that we all know was disproportionately impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. This is an initiative of the LA County Department of Arts and Culture. It's administered through our partners, community partners, through their online platform. And this is funded by the LA County Board of Supervisors through the American Rescue Plan Act. I know that's a mouthful, but this is, as Kristen mentioned, this is unprecedented funding for this sector. This is $26 million through 5 grant opportunities that are administered through one online application. As many of you know, we received $12 million in CARES Act funding back in 2020. And thanks to all of the advocacy of grantees, partners, and the Board of Supervisors, all of those thank you letters that you send at the end of your grant period, we were able to receive a $26 million allocation, and it's going to 5 different grant programs. So I'll be going through each of these grant programs one by one and some of the eligibility requirements. But you can see here that Arts Relief and Recovery at $14.2 million. This is the largest allocation. And this is the one that we think most, any organization that's eligible to apply will be applying for this funding. Then there is some funding set aside for reopening culture, tourism, your marketing dollars. There is also a Creative Works and Jobs for Artists grant, Creative Career Pathways for Youth at $3 million, and then Art for Justice Involved Youth at 2.8. For the last 2 programs, this is really, I think, more specific in terms of eligibility for organizations that have been engaged in this work and working with these populations. In terms of dates to remember, we did a preview application workshop back in December. Today is our opening day, January 18th, and the application period is open until February 15th. And we are offering online and in-person workshops during this period. As I mentioned, today, obviously, we're doing a webinar. We're doing the last webinar in early February, and we are partnering with LA County Library. So there is a schedule online of locations, dates, and times where we'll be in the next few weeks. And then, as I also mentioned, we're doing virtual office hours where you can drop in online with your specific questions. And then also in the hopes that maybe folks have the same questions, so you can there's also an opportunity to learn from each other. In February and March, all of the applications will be reviewed. And by the end of April 2023 is when awards will be distributed. So as you can see, it's a fairly aggressive timeline, especially if you're a grantee of one of our other programs, and know that sometimes it's a year from time of application until time of award. So the goal is to get these dollars out to you as quickly as possible. Now, in terms of eligibility, this is open to nonprofit arts organizations with 501c3 status and or that possess a Model A fiscal sponsorship. And we define a nonprofit arts organization as an organization whose primary mission is to provide arts programming, and also that it's demonstrated with more than 50% of the overall budget being devoted to arts programming. In addition to nonprofit arts organizations, additional nonprofit organizations that are not arts organizations, but they could be social service, social justice, human services organizations that provide arts programming at their organization are also eligible. So for this group of organizations, we do have the Community Impact Arts Grant. So it would be these organizations that would be eligible for this funding. The organizations are providing their most recent arts and culture programming budget, which of course would be less than 50% of their overall budget. We are also seeking to fund Indigenous serving organizations with 501c3 status or that possess Model A fiscal sponsorship and are providing arts and culture or cultural heritage community programming. We are defining Indigenous serving as an organization with a primary mission to serve Native or Indigenous communities, and that's reflected in their governance, their leadership, as well as the community served. In addition to having either 501c3 status or being a Model A fiscally sponsored organization, organizations also need to meet all of these eligibility requirements at the time of application. So you had to have been in operation prior to March 1st, 2020, and were affected by the pandemic and required closures. You need to demonstrate at least 3 years of providing arts and culture programming, either in person or online since January 1st, 2019 in LA County. You have to be located and serving LA County as evidenced by the address on your 990. And your principal offices must be in Los Angeles County as shown on your 990. And you have a functioning board of directors that meets regularly with at least 51% of the members residing in California. I know that in some of the other workshops, this question has come up. Some organizations received their 501c3 nonprofit status after March 1st, 2020, and they've asked if they're eligible. The answer to that is yes, as long as you were doing, you may have been providing services programming, but still didn't have the official status. So as long as there is documentation of programming, your organization is eligible, and you do have to have the most recent 990. In terms of organizations that are not eligible to apply, this includes LA County departments, federal, state, or municipal departments and agencies, private membership organizations that are not open to the general public, K through 12 schools, both public, private, and continuation, and organizations whose primary mission it is to raise funds. Also, universities, colleges, community colleges are not eligible, nor are their departments. If it's a nonprofit organization with arts programming with its own separate 501c3 status that's located on a college or university campus, that's okay. If an organization does not provide any arts and cultural programs or services, they are not eligible for this program. And if no arts and cultural programs have been provided from 2019 to 2022, also not eligible. Organizations that have suspended or inactive status with the California Secretary of State at the time of application are not eligible. And this is open to nonprofits only. So individuals and individual artists are not eligible to apply for any of these grants. In terms of required financial documentation, we will need to see your 501c3 IRS determination letter as proof of your organization's tax exempt status, and that has your FEIN number. We will also need to see your most recently completed 990 that ends on or after December 31st, 2020. Depending on budget size, that could be your 990, 990 EZ, or 990N. For organizations with budgets less than $50,000, the 990N or EZ is fine. And that may just be the digital postcard, and that is acceptable for this program. We will also ask you to provide a screenshot from the California Secretary of State showing your active status. So this is something that is completely free for you to go to the website, take that screenshot, and then you'll upload it as a JPEG or as a PDF. This was something that we also did for the CARES Act a few years ago. For all organizations with budgets of 2 million and above, your audit is also required. It should be for your most recently completed tax year on or after June 30th, 2020. But if you don't have it available, and we know that many organizations have been in this boat where they're waiting on their accountant to complete, then you can provide the previous one. We will not be accepting financial reviews. So for budgets of $2 million and over, we do need the most recent audit that you have. So for fiscally sponsored organizations who possess Model A comprehensive sponsorship, it has to be a state of California based fiscal sponsor. And also the fiscal sponsor may be sponsoring several Model A organizations or projects. So fiscal sponsors can apply multiple times, but a separate application is needed for each organization. What we are asking for is a copy of the agreement between the organization and the fiscal sponsor. In this case, you are providing the fiscal sponsor's most recent 990, and they also have the same requirement of providing an audit if their budget is over $2 million. Do we have any questions up until this point before I go into the equity portion of this? Are there any questions in the chat, Yvonne?
So just getting clear on the organization must be located in LA County, even if you're 1 mile over that county line and serving people in LA County, no exceptions.
No exceptions. This is federal dollars that went to the LA County Board of Supervisors. So you must be located in the address on your 990 must be an LA County address.
David, did you have any additional questions? I see your hand up.
Yes, I have a question.
Oh, sorry. I was handing it over to David. Do you have any additional questions, David?
No, thank you so much for your time. Sorry, I was trying to lower my hand. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
and best of luck.
Thank you. Was it Regina or Marcella who had the question?
I have a question also.
There you go. Go ahead.
Regina can go first.
Oh, is that me? I'm sorry. I must have pressed something. No, I'm good for now. Thank you.
I have a question with regard to the providing the certificate of status from the California Secretary of State. Our organization is a 501c3 California chartered unincorporated association, and where we've had this issue come up before, where because of our unique charter status as an unincorporated association, for some reason, the California Secretary of State does not provide status certificates for UAs. And what we've had to do is to go to the Secretary of State, get the Secretary of State to make a statement that we're in good standing, and then we provide that. And we've done that for many, many years when asked for it, either from LA County or from CIC or from the recent COVID opportunities, most recently from the California Nonprofit Performing Arts.
So Marcella, if you can get the certificate before the deadline and can apply, then your organization will be eligible, but we won't be able to provide any extensions.
No, we already have it. So should we just upload it or?
Yes, yes.
Okay, that we will do that. Thank you very much.
Sure. Okay. You know what, Marcella, the one thing will be is it needs to be active as of in 2023. So if it's a few years old, it actually won't be valid, but we can connect at the end of this. Are there any other questions about eligibility requirements? So,
Yeah, we have a question from Sarah.
hi, Sarah.
Hi there. Yes, you mentioned that you need a functioning board of directors, but I am assuming that if you are using a fiscal receiver, that you're talking about the fiscal receiver must have a functioning board of directors. Is that correct?
Correct. They're the applicant. They're the lead applicant or applicant of record on this. Yes.
Okay. And when you say that the fiscal receiver has to be an arts organization, do they have to be a performing arts corporation organization?
No, the fiscal sponsor may not be an arts organization. Community Partners, for example, provides Model A fiscal sponsorship, but it does have to be a Model A fiscal sponsorship. Model C is not eligible for this program.
And can I ask you really, what is a Model A fiscal sponsorship is, can you pack that?
Not, we can discuss at the end if there's time for questions,
Okay.
but essentially this is for organizations that are essentially functioning as 501c3s, but they may contract with it, or they may have an agreement with a fiscal sponsor who's essentially covering all of the back end, completing all of the requirements. So, but we can discuss further later. So yeah, thank you. Any other questions?
Jane and Dan, this is about eligibility. So if these questions are focused on eligibility, we're going to go ahead. So Jane, you want to ask your question?
Very quick. As far as the IRS determination letter, we have an EIN and I know that, but all I have is a little certificate from somebody. How do you go about getting like a copy of that? Do I just contact the IRS?
It's usually 501c3s have it's a one-page letter with and you might, I'm not sure if like you could go to GuideStar or something and download it. I'd have to double check that, but yes, I would contact the IRS if you are a 501c3 operating in California. That shouldn't be problematic. I know that with our with LA County Department of Arts and Culture, we no longer ask for this for our grants programs, but given that these are federal dollars and there's an audit, and this is why all of this documentation we are asking for up front, should we be asked to provide it. So it's to save everybody a step and possible heartache. So that's why we're asking for it up front.
Right, I understand. Okay, thanks a lot.
Sure.
And one more from Dan.
I hope so. Yeah.
So just a quick question about the functioning board. I just wanted to check if your definition of functioning board is just like the standard, because I noticed that there was like 4 different titles, whereas I understand a functioning board needs a minimum of 3 only, right?
Right, and I think some board members, like they may serve more than one function, but that's we're asking that the functioning board, the main point is that over 50% are in the state of California.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Just-
Okay. Any other questions, Yvonne?
Just one last, we are a 501c3, but we're labeled as a private foundation. We're working to change the status, but do we qualify?
It depends on your fundraising activity and your programmatic activity. We can discuss at the end because there are organizations that both raise funds but have a lot of public programming. So we can look at that at the end.
And Dana.
Quick question, if the organization clears through Community Partners, or Community Partners is their fiscal sponsor, is there any, are they still eligible to apply, or is there sort of conflict?
Yes. And in this case, it's the Community Partners will be the fiscal of the applicant of record. But we also know there are very few actually fiscal sponsors in LA County. So That's where we're asking for all of the information about the organization in terms of where it's located, leadership, all of that. But it would be the community partners 990 and audit that's submitted.
All right, we're good.
Okay, great. Thank you, Yvonne. I'm sorry, I can't see the questions in the chat since I have the PowerPoint.
No worries. I
But we'll
got
all
you.
take a, thank you. So the next section is prioritizing equity in Los Angeles County. And this is different from CARES Act, where essentially the funds were distributed with prioritizing organizations with budgets of less than 15 million, and everyone in general received a similar award. In this case, organizations will be prioritized if they are located in or provide services in or within 1 mile of the highest and high need census tracts as indicated on the LA County Explorer. If you have not yet gone to this tool, I recommend that you spend some time in here to see if your organization is located in or within 1 mile. This is also prioritizing organizations that have a budget under 15 million. It doesn't mean that organizations with budgets with a higher budget can't apply. They can, but they're not going to receive a higher award based on their budget size. In terms of how to use that Equity Explorer and what address do you enter in the LA County Equity Explorer? In this grant application, if you haven't been in there already, we are going to ask you for 3 addresses. We're going to ask for your LA County address is listed on your most recent 990, and this is to ensure that all applicants are located in LA County. Some organizations may have a different address where their headquarters or their main administrative address is. So we'll ask you to input that as well. And some of you may have an additional primary programming address or an additional programming address that could be different from the 2 previous addresses. We know that nonprofit arts organizations have very complicated lives in this web within Los Angeles County. So we are asking you to check all of the addresses in that tool to determine if any are in priority zone 1. There will be an additional question where we're asking you to put in a priority zone 1 address if you have one. So we will be asking you for multiple addresses in the application that you'll input, and then you're also going to use that tool to see if any of those addresses are in priority zone 1. And the reason for this, I'm sorry, let me just go through a few more things. When you're in the tool, these are some tips. When you type in your address, do not use the enter key to search for your address. You're going to enter your exact street address, including zip code. Your PO boxes are not eligible for this. You'll look at the map to make sure that the pin appears where your address is. And you're going to select the correct address from the drop down. You're not going to enter the name of your organization, and you're not going to hit enter. You're going to look at the drop down and select the correct address after you've typed it in. This is really important because otherwise it can show an error or show that it may not be a priority 1 zone address when it is. And so we're asking you to, if you have a priority zone 1 address, to type that in. If you don't have one, do not worry. You will still be eligible for this grant. You'll be in priority zone 2. And if you're eligible otherwise, you will receive funding. But this is intended to serve areas that were hardest hit by COVID-19. And as you can see, that is outlined a little bit on this map in blue within the larger context of LA County. So again, I think the most important thing to do is you're typing in your exact address, you're looking at the drop-down menu and selecting the correct one. We will be prioritizing, again, funding for the organizations that are located in or have a programming location in or within 1 mile of the highest and high needs census tracts. All other applicants that otherwise eligible will receive secondary priority. We are looking at prioritizing funding with 75% of the funds at least for each grant programming directed to the priority zone 1 organizations. Again, use that tool and take a look at your addresses to see if any of them are priority zone 1. You will put this in the application. We will do a double check of all addresses that are entered, but this will help speed up the review process for us. Okay, so now I'm going to go into each of the grant programs. Are there any questions, Yvonne, on the tool and prioritizing equity in LA County?
Not specifically, but just as I've placed in the chat, the links to the priority zone tool can be found both in the guidelines as well as when you're going through the application. So if you'd like to take a look at that prior to getting into the application, you can find that link on the website.
And also just a shout out now, and I know Yvonne will be going through the application, but they've put in hyperlinks, like, so while you're in the application, that you can go in and check things as you need to, but it's also, as she mentioned, also in the guidelines and also in the sample application. Okay, so this is the first grant opportunity. It's the Relief and Recovery Grant. Total available funds, $14.2 million. We're anticipating an award range of $1,000 to $50,000. Part of that, it really depends on how many eligible applications we have and how many of those are in priority zone 1. This is your overall general operating relief fund grant to support the recovery of arts and creative economy sector in LA County. So there's a wide range of uses for this grant. If you've been in the application, you will see that there are only 2 questions that you need to answer. One, that your organization has been affected by COVID-19 and closures. And 2, we're asking you to estimate how you would use funding if you were to receive it. And that's it. So it's there's, you know, the first kind of set of universal questions that we went through. Now that when we go through each of the subsequent 5 opportunities, it's just a couple to a handful of questions for each of the grant applications. These are the additional eligibility requirements. There are none if you meet all of the previous ones that we reviewed. And this is what you can use the funding for. We are asking you to check boxes on how you anticipate you would use funds. And let's see, are there any questions on this one? This is the one that anyone who is applying that is eligible, you should be checking off the box that you're applying for this funding. This is your general operating relief funding. Gabriella, I see that you raised your hand. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. I just had a question. As if you're eligible, if your organization is eligible for multiple grants, can you apply to multiple grants or is it only one grant?
We recommend that you apply to all of the grants that you're eligible for.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay. So again, this first grant, if you have all of your documentation ready to go and it's all up to date, you should be eligible for this grant. I see Sarah raised her hand. Sarah, did you have a question?
Yes, I'm sorry. One question. When you say that, when you're talking about eligibility, I use a fiscal receiver. We're not yet nonprofit. So are you talking about your fiscal receivers operations and how they fall into the categories and addresses and all that? Versus
No, your Model A fiscal receiver, your fiscal sponsor will provide the 990 and potentially an audit, but we are asking for addresses of the organization and where they're operating.
Okay, so the actual organization, not the fiscal receiver.
Yes.
Okay.
And Yvonne, I see hands raised, but I'm not.
Yep, we have Luce. You want to ask, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Hi, I had a question in regards to one of the questions for the relief and recovery grant, which is closure due to the pandemic. Can you elaborate on what closure means? Because we did have to close our doors, but we had to pivot to have some online or virtual classes. So that we continue to stay open in that way, but we were not in our offices and staff was not all working. So I just wanted to make sure that that was okay.
That's fine. And that, so answer yes to that question in order to be eligible. We know that, arts organizations, many with facilities, of course, were the first to have to shutter, or those that were working in schools. And then some were able to pivot very quickly to provide programming online, and not everybody could do that. So it's kind of taking into account that there's a whole range, or some had to shutter for longer than others. So you would answer though yes to the question that you were affected by closures and the pandemic, because at least initially in those first days, that then turned into months and then into years, there was a time where it still took a moment to pivot to any online programming.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And we've got Sheila and then Reagan.
Okay. Sheila?
Sheila, you're on mute. Sheila, you're on mute. Reagan, you want to go ahead?
Sure, thanks so much. Just a question about the address location of services. Our organization provides programming in person at locations of other organizations. So are we permitted to use that organization's address in the location?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
And if it's not your organization's address, or like not your facility, we are asking for documentation to show that something happened at that address. It could be an agreement between you and that arts provider. It could be a flyer. It could be a social media post showing that something was at that location. In the application, you'll see there's a variety of ways that you can show that your organization did programming there.
Would an MOU suffice?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Just for those asking, this presentation, we've done some updates to it, but it will be available on the Community Partners Creative Recovery LA site. So as well as the recording later this week. So thank you for those who have been asking about that. Sheila, I think we're ready. Sheila?
Yeah, I'm not hearing anything.
Okay. Danita, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, quick question. If you've received the California Nonprofit Performing Arts Grant, are you still eligible for this grant?
Yes. Yes. We're asking folks in the application, and it's really to get a just gauge like who received additional support during this time. And I don't know if it's a spoiler yet, but there is no final report that organizations that receive funding are going to have to complete. So our research and evaluation team asked, there are some key questions in there that are not so much a determinant of what your award will be, but that we want to report back to the board on how this sector has been affected. So yeah, but it does not affect eligibility if you received a previous grant.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're good to go.
Okay, great. All right, the next grant is reopening marketing tourism dollars. The total available funds are 1.7 million, which is different from the 14 million of the previous grant. The awards here we expect will be between $1,000 and $15,000. And this is to support organizations' marketing efforts and amplifying reopening, encouraging visitors and tourism. This is really, the previous grant is for your general op. This is for your marketing dollars. Again, I anticipate that if you're eligible for the program in general, check this box to get some additional marketing dollars. Again, this is only a couple of additional questions. We are asking you to confirm that, yes, you need marketing dollars, and we'll ask you how you plan on using them if awarded. You don't have to complete any budget or proposed budget of how you'll spend the funds for any of the five opportunities. So this is what the question looks like, and you will check off how you would intend to use funds. Okay. Any questions on this one? Theater of Hearts, Youth First. Is that Sheila?
Hi, this is Jess. I'm the program coordinator at Theater of Hearts. We did have a quick question actually regarding the previous one. Because we do work across LA County and various parts of underserved communities, would we be able to use those addresses, not just our office address when applying?
Yes, so you'll type in, if you have multiple program addresses, and I know for arts ed organizations and others, this is very much the case, you're working in multiple locations. Find the address where if you have one where you've done the most programming, say in this last year or two, that's a priority zone 1.
Okay.
But you will still put in your organization location. You'll still put the address on your 990 for your organization's case. That may be the same address. And then for your programming, because you're all over the county, I would say test a few addresses, use the one that's priority zone 1. And because it isn't your organization's facility or address, then that's where we're asking you to provide documentation that programming has happened there. So I think it's kind of a review of what documentation you have, where you've been working, if you can kind of see where you've been working the most in the last year or two.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And Nina, you want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you. I am just asking about the grant amount and if that is requested by us by checking a box or determined through the grant process based on a budget or a formula.
So it's going to be based on, and thank you for this question. No one is putting in neither a request amount nor budget for any of the 5 grant opportunities. The amount of the award will depend on how many eligible applications there are in the pool, which of those organizations have applied to that particular grant, as well as who's in priority zone 1 and who's in priority zone 2. So those are the factors: number of applicants, location of the applicant, and I'm sorry, I just had a brain freeze, but it's so you're not putting any kind of request amount for any of the 5. And I anticipate, because this is open to beyond our grantee pool, which the department is funding 500 plus organizations across our programs. I mean, we anticipate that it will be a high number of responses. Okay. I can move on to the next grant.
Sorry, yes. Okay. Keep forgetting you can't see me. Okay, yes.
No, I can see a little, I can see hands raised, but that's it. Okay.
Yeah, we're good. We are good to go.
Thank you, Yvonne, and I appreciate we've been working as a team on this whole project, and I can't speak just highly enough of Yvonne and her team, and also everybody at Community Partners. They are phenomenal people.
Right back at you.
The next opportunity is Creative Works and Jobs for Artist Grant. This pot of money is $4.7 million, and we are anticipating the awards to be in the range of $1,000 to $25,000. Now, this grant program is a little bit more specific. This is to support the employment of artists for creative works, artist-led projects, and public programs. So your organization can use the funds for commissions, jobs, residencies, productions, performances, and other similar programs that engage artists and creative projects. So this is, but you have to have been doing this work and have documentation of it. So we're asking for a demonstrated history of programs or projects that engage artists for creative works, artist-led projects, and public programs. We will also ask you to indicate how you plan on using the funds to support the employment of artists and program activity. This is about also kind of the final product, the creative work or the project or the program at the end. So you can use this funding to employ artists and the costs associated with that, the program activity, artist commissions, residencies. So we're anticipating that not every organization that's eligible for the program, for the grant in general, that this is going to be fewer organizations because not everybody is engaged in this kind of work. Are there questions on this grant?
A popular one, does this include independent contractors?
If they're artists, yes. But not independent contractors if they're doing like accounting or marketing. This is really about dollars going to artists for the work that they engage in at your organizations.
Someone asked if this can include journalism trainees that we place in newsrooms.
If it's, are they artists that are working in newsrooms?
That's from Patrice Williams.
Patrice, we can maybe we can hold off until the end to go a little bit more in depth, but it is to hire artists and creative workers. I did, here's how we define what that is. If you see this subset number 1 and 2, so it's artists, culture bearers, creative workers, culture makers, working in any artistic discipline, including but not limited to visual, performing, literary, and media arts. And then the creative works, public programs could be artworks, performances, exhibits, permanent or temporary public art. So we can discuss a little bit more at the end to see if the work that you do, if this would be eligible.
Okay, we have a few questions. Quilting for Community, hi.
I have a question about the programming, the history of teaching artists or paying teaching artists. How far does that have to go back?
The organization has been active since 2019.
Right.
So January 1st, 2019.
Right. I'm sorry. Regarding employing teaching artists, we recently started working with teaching artists and paying them, but it doesn't go back to 2019. It's more recent. Are we eligible to apply for the creative work and jobs for artists grant?
So for this grant, it's being used for commissions, jobs, residencies. So it's not to teach classes. It's that there's, at the end of this, it's hiring an artist for a residency, a commission. They could be teaching, of course, as part of their residency, but that there is a concrete sort of creative work that is produced as a result of this funding. And so we're defining that as creative works, artist-led projects, public programs. So it's more about what is the artwork, the performance, the exhibit that will result in this. But also we are requiring a demonstrated history of programs or projects. So if this is very, very recent work for you and you don't have history from 2019 on, then you would not be eligible for this grant.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. But for the first two, yes, if everything else is in order.
Lupe Ramos Silva.
Hello. Yes, with Valley Cultural Foundation, we have something called the Emerging Artists, which are performers. And once what we do is have a competition, and whoever wins gets to the opening act for our summer concerts, which is between 10 and 11 of them. Will this be something that would qualify us in this area?
How long have you been engaged in this work, Lupe?
For the last 5 years.
Then yes, I would say so.
Thank you.
Sure.
These are more specific questions that I think should in the chat that should, if we can hold off and take them at the end of the presentation. They're very, they're more specific. What qualifies as evidence of demonstrated history is
one, and that's a great question, because we'll be going into that for this and the next two opportunities. Is we want what's on your website, what programming history is there. So this is not a new idea grant. You have to have been engaged in this work. This is a relief and recovery grant, so it's relief and recovering from this pandemic for work that you were engaged in prior to the pandemic. So there's more information in the guidelines, but we're asking for, is it on your website? Is there an annual report that surfaces this program? Is there something maybe on social media or a news article, review of your work? And we know that with media, it's very hard for arts and culture to get significant coverage in this region. But at the same time, there are blogs, there are, we're not saying it has to be, one kind of media source. So, but that is further delineated in the guidelines. But if you've been engaged in this work, you should have a way to show that you've been doing this work prior to the pandemic starting.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, thank you, Yvonne. And thank you everyone for your patience. This is why we've also opened up the office hours, the virtual office hours on Friday, so folks can come with those questions and we can spend a little bit more time discussing. Both Yvonne and I will be there, and we encourage you to attend that if possible. We'll have 3 of those scheduled. Okay, the next grant is the Creative Career Pathways for Youth grant. This is $3 million. We're anticipating awards of $10,000 to $150,000. This is a grant program for nonprofits to support career pathways and training programs in the arts and creative fields for youth, early career, and emerging professionals who are underrepresented in the arts and creative sector, so that those who have historically experienced barriers to accessing those careers are job ready as the economy recovers and stabilizes. So again, this is for organizations already engaged in this work. This is to support training and career pathway programs, as well as general operating to support capacity and fiscal sustainability. Again, we are asking for demonstrated history of your creative career pathway and training work. And this is working with youth. All of these definitions: youth underrepresented in the arts, opportunity youth, systems impacted youth. There are further definitions in the guidelines. And we are also asking you to briefly describe the plans to use the funds to support career pathways or training programs. I'll just go into the next slide. This can be used for either general operating or programmatic costs. So this includes planning, implementation, evaluation of program activities that connect youth underrepresented in the arts. And then when we're looking at program activities, that might include career exploration and exposure, college and career readiness, fellowships, internships, apprenticeships, technical skill building or certification programs, youth jobs in the arts, stipends. So it's really a range. And we do have that other category if there's something in there that we haven't covered. But it is for organizations that are already engaged in this work. Are there any questions on this grant? And I'm just going to go back one slide so you can see the purpose of this one.
Can you repeat the number of years that represents demonstrated history, Angie?
Sure, from January 1st, 2019 on. Okay, should I go on? Oh, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I can answer in the chat. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And the final grant opportunity is for Arts for Justice Involved Youth Grant. This is similar, $2.8 million. We anticipate awards to be from $10,000 to $150,000. Again, this is a grant program for nonprofits that use the arts to support justice system involved youth, justice system impacted youth, and communities and youth at risk of becoming justice system involved. Again, these definitions are in the guidelines if you need additional information. This is using funds for arts-based youth development programs, as well as general operating and capacity building. So again, this is not a new idea grant. This is for organizations that have been engaged in this work since 2019. So we want to see that demonstrated history of providing programs that use the arts to support these communities and populations. And we will also ask how you would intend using the funds if they were awarded to serve this population. This is a little bit, this is one of the checkbox questions in the application for those that are eligible for this grant. It outlines what you can use the funding for. So it could be for arts education or direct instruction, either in school or out of school, working with this population. Arts-based youth leadership programs, peace building and community healing. It could be used to create artistic works or to artist-led cultural activities, cultural organizing, case management, mentorship, advisement, hosting and transportation, general operating. So it's actually, it's very specific which organizations are eligible for this. But for those that are eligible, they can use it for a wide variety of activities, programs, and general operating. Are there any questions on this one?
So if I can just recommend, if your question is based in a particular context that's particular to your organization and you want to clarify, can you hold off on that question until we get through the presentation? If it's a general question that others might benefit from, then feel free to ask at this point, or, as Angie asks, if there are any questions. Is that okay? Okay, Nina.
Thank you. I'm wondering if you are required to use the funds within a certain time frame.
That's a great question. The awards will go out in April 2023, and organizations have until December 31st, 2026 to use the funds. So there is actually an ample amount of time to use the funds. My crystal ball says people would use funds way before 2026, but yeah, there is some time there to use the funds. And I see.
Go ahead, Regan. Sorry.
No worries.
For this particular justice involved youth grant, is there any benefit in indicating or ticking a box under a particular program initiative that you're wanting to pilot or launch versus general operating costs, given the parameter of this specific grant being making sure that justice or systems impacted youth have a pathway to employment or community building, et cetera? Is there an advantage to checking a particular box here?
No, there isn't. I think with these, it's the specificity of which organizations have been engaged in this work and are eligible for it. And what we're trying to do is to report back. And again, I mentioned that there will be no final report. The dollars will go out, but our research and evaluation team has spent a lot of time on questions that we could then download and report out data points back to the board on how the funds will be used. So you know, 60% of those awarded in this for this grant are using it for general operating, but maybe 70% are using it for, you know, it's just to bring back some data points of how they're planning on using the funding.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay.
And we're good to go.
Thank you. So tips for preparing a successful application. If you have not yet, take a look at the guidelines and review them thoroughly. We are asking that you only apply to the opportunities your organization is eligible for. If you're not sure, send an email to send an appointment to discuss, or come to the office hours that are scheduled. If you don't just apply for everything, if you're not eligible, we want to be able to review these applications as quickly as possible and get funding out the door. But we will be reviewing, particularly for the last 3 applications, those links to website, the documentation that you're providing to ensure that that demonstrated history has been provided. Prepare the required financial documentation in advance. This means, you know, making sure that you have that active status, that you're 990, that you have the most recent, that you have your audit if that's what you need to submit, as well as your 501c3 documentation. There is no artistic documentation that you'll be attaching to this application, so that's not part of it. There will be no grace period to provide missing materials. The deadline is February 15th. It's open until midnight that night. After 5, there will not be someone available to answer questions. We strongly 1 gazillion, billion, million recommend that you submit the application before the deadline, and that you have your answers in a separate Word doc. With using Submittable, as soon as you submit your application, you'll be able to see it in your account. But we really recommend that you submit in advance. And also that's if you do come up with questions or if there are challenges, that you can reach out and get that support well before the deadline. And what will the award amount be? We've reviewed this a few times. It will depend on the total applications received, the equity framework, and the available funds. This is all going to be awarded and dispersed in one round. So this 26 million goes out the door by the end of April. There will not be multiple applications or multiple rounds. And this was partly like looking at some of the relief funds earlier, where it was just kind of confusing sometimes for folks to continually be applying for the same application. So one round, one application, make sure you have everything submitted perfectly, and then dollars will go out at the end of April. If you have questions about eligibility, you are emailing this ARPA grants@arts.lacounty.gov. And we have the main page for this grant on our website. If you have questions about how to access the grant application or any other technical questions, you're going to contact community partners at creativerecovery@communitypartners.org. They do have a phone number where you can leave a message, and someone will get back to you. And all of the information about this program, including the guidelines, recording to workshop, sample application, we will get an updated FAQ there, is on their website. So everything you need is on www.communitypartners.org/LA County/hyphen creative recovery.
If you need further clarifications apart from what is listed in the guidelines, you can either hold off with your question until the end of this presentation, or we really, if you have multiple questions that are similar to that, we really recommend that you come register for an office hour or office hours, and we can get really you know, go much deeper there. So appreciate all the questions. And then just one that keeps popping up about, can we apply for multiple funds? The answer is yes, you can, if you qualify.
Yeah, yes, and you should. If you're reviewing the guidelines, believe you are eligible for 3 out of the 5, apply for all 3. I just want to share some additional county resources. We are partnering with LA County Library to do in-person workshops that'll be starting next week. And they have, if it's needed, free Wi-Fi laptops for public use. And so this is just our little promo spot for LA County Libraries. Additionally, the CEO has listed several other grant opportunities, so you can go to the CEO's website to see what else is available. And thank you. I'm going to stop sharing, and Yvonne is now going to take us through the actual accessing the online application. So, you know, we're at good time. It's about 3:08. So Yvonne's going to do that presentation. And then for whoever would like to stay on and get their specific questions answered, you're more than welcome to stay. And so thank you for your patience on this piece. It's a lot of material. So
Thank you,
okay,
Angie.
Yvonne.
Yes. One sec.
It's good to see all of you. It's weird looking at a PowerPoint the whole time. Okay.
Okay.
This looks good.
All right. Can everyone see? Everyone can see the screen well enough? Great. So this opportunity is being platformed on the Submittable platform, and the direct link to the application is located on Community Partners website, the Creative Recovery LA website, which I've been placing that link in the chat multiple times. It's also in the guidelines on the website in multiple places. What you want to do before starting an application is to ensure that you're either registered or signed in to your Submittable account. And so we want to go through, just for those who have not used Submittable before, we want to assure that you know, just the registration piece and how to do that is clear. So we want to, I'm going to share a quick video with everyone just about getting started with Submittable.
Welcome to Submittable. Submittable is an online platform that thousands of organizations use to collect and review all kinds of submissions and applications. You can use Submittable to discover and submit to those opportunities. From grants and funding to contests and awards, from calls for creative work to residencies and workshops, and from scholarships and fellowships to conferences and exhibitions, even jobs and internships. Whatever it is you're looking for, you can find it on Submittable. You may have found us through Discover, our site of available opportunities, or through one of our partner organizations. After you create a free account, you're ready to make your first submission. As you fill out the form, be sure to refer to the guidelines to ensure that you qualify, follow the instructions, and note any required responses or fees. If you save a draft, you can come back to it later from within your account. When you submit, you'll receive a confirmation email. Sign into Submittable to check on your application status. You also may be able to message the organization or request to edit your submission. All organizations have a different process for reviewing content. If you have questions about your submission or the organization's review process or timeline, please contact the organization directly. You'll receive an email if and when your application is accepted, declined, or marked as complete. If you have any technical questions, the question mark in the top right will take you to our comprehensive help center. If you can't find an answer to your question, contact our friendly support team through the form. Thanks for joining Submittable, and congratulations on taking the first step toward landing your next great opportunity. We're glad you're here.
Great. Okay. Let me just go back. So that's just a simple overview for those who have not yet used Submittable, sorry. So where do we start? Where do we begin? This is the a link here to Community Partners Creative Recovery LA page where you can get all things Creative Recovery LA, including the guidelines, a sample application, the direct link to the application itself, resources like this presentation that we've shared here today, recording of our past webinars, as well as the ability to register for future workshops and office hours. So everything can be found here at communitypartners.org/LA County-Creative Recovery LA. I really highly advise that you do not go to communitypartners.org's front page, because it will be really difficult, if not impossible, to navigate through to this particular page. So please use the direct link. That's going to be your fastest and most efficient way to get where you want to be. So as you can see, this is a snapshot of that page, and under the title there, Creative Recovery LA, you can see highlighted, to access the online application, please see important instructions and link below. And so then as you scroll down, you will come to a header, a title, accessing the Creative Recovery LA online grant application, with specific information here. I do want to go over these important notes because as we're moving through the final stages of getting this application live, we got some tricks and tips here. So if you want to ensure the proper functioning of this submittable application, you really need, including autosave, you really need to use and/or download and use Google Chrome or Firefox. There's some glitches with the other platforms or browsers, I should say, but most especially Microsoft Edge. So if you are using Microsoft Edge, do not for this application. And then secondly, it really is, it just saves you a step. It's not a problem, but it will save you a step if you are already logged into your submittable account. So when you click through that apply here button, it takes you directly to the application, as opposed to having to sign in or register, etc., or any other rerouting that may be possible out there in the ether. So really log in and then click through. That's the best way to get to that place you want to be. When you do get into the application, this is what that first section will look like. And some of you may be working on this as a collaborative with multiple staff or partners, volunteers helping you out. And that is considered what is called managing your collaborators. At the top of the application, there is a Manage Collaborators button there, as the arrow indicates. And then as it'll take you to another page where you just enter the emails of your partners or collaborators. You hit send or enter, and it will send an invitation to your folks, and then they will have access to your submission or your application, and will be able to work on it, save drafts, edit, etc. Speaking of saving your draft and submitting your application, as you scroll all the way down to the very end of the application, you see two buttons, Save Draft and Submit. So it does allow you to save a draft. And just in case I always get nervous about, did I remember to save? The reason why we ask you to use those particular browsers is because Submittable does provide autosave, right? Every time you enter something in, it will give you this little note at the top that says, saved application, your application is being saved, or autosave. So that's why it's really important. So no worries there. As you move through it, your application will be saved, but at the very end, as you get to finishing off the night or this particular phase of the work, you can just reassure yourself by hitting save draft, but do know that it auto saves. When you come back, if you've saved a draft and you'd like to come back to it, there are multiple ways you can do so. When you log into your submittable account, you usually get to your dashboard, which shows your submissions. So you can either click directly into that submission and its stage will show that it's a draft, or you can go to your user site map, which is on the upper right-hand corner next to your little avatar or your little symbol, and you can click into sitemap, access your submissions this way, or at the very top on the bar at the top. And that is all for the submittable login, access, saving drafts. Are there any questions that I can answer for you all regarding that?
Yvonne, there's a question that asks, do collaborators we invite also need to have a submittable account?
Yes. They will need to register or log into their submittable account. Thank you. That's a good question. Other questions?
I see a question from Dan.
Yes. Hello. I would like to know if the collaborators could submit on their own. So like say if they accidentally could submit before like then is that possible?
Is it possible for them to submit?
Yes.
Yes. So your collaborators have full range of power, let's say. And so that will be important to note to them that they, and mistakes happen and we have ways around that, and you can always email us in that case, but we don't want to be reopening applications for just anything, but we understand we're all human. And so there's ways around that.
All right. Thank you. Just in case.
Thank you.
Use the power of collaborator wisely.
Yes.
Make sure you can trust your collaborators.
Yes.
Okay, let's see. I have an account for another organization. Do I need to create an account for each organization I work for? Yes, I am a grant writer.
That would be smart. The way that mine looks, because I get invited, as many of you probably do, to serve as a panelist for other grant opportunities, and they give you access to your assigned, the grants you're assigned to review. And so it really would be in the best interest for you to create the account for each of your organizations that you may be working with. But you will always see a personal account, right? There's that, and then there's those organizational accounts. So yeah, so just, and make sure that, you're inviting yourself to be a collaborator in that case, unless you're the administrator. So yeah, so I know some things get complicated that way, but that's usually how submittable works. So you need to create an account for each of the organizations. Yes, we love grant writers. Yay. Yeah, any other questions about that? Let me just share, I had a question earlier today about someone who was really, these folks are really ahead of the game. They had already, they were close to submitting and uploading their attachments. And they were concerned about some of the symbols when you upload, let's say, a PDF or a doc, a Word doc, or an Excel spreadsheet, or a JPEG or TIFF, right? All these different types of files that can represent images or documents. Please note that if you upload a JPEG, a PNG, a TIFF, any of those image related documents, or I'm sorry, files, It will show an image, right? A little sort of icon that's a preview of the image of what you uploaded, but it will not show an image for PDFs, Word doc, Excel spreadsheets, etc. So don't get nervous and say, am I doing something wrong? No, it's just the way Submittable works with those different types of files. So be assured that if it says upload successful, when you do, because it will say that upload successful, then you're good.
And I can attest to this. I did another test last night, and after I submitted, I received the notification, but I was able to go right into my Submittable account, open up the test application, see all of the attachments, see all of everything I had answered. So I think what's really great about this system is you don't have to send an email that's like, did you get it? Is it received? You can actually go check that right away, and it's right there. So I like that feature of Submittable.
That's right. And as the video explained, you'll also receive an confirmation email once you hit submit that your application has been received successfully, and no need to, get any further clarification if you get that email. Any other questions about Submittable or the application? Okay. Great.
Okay, then what I can do is I'll stop the recording, and then whoever wants to stay on to get their more specific questions answered, we can go ahead and do that. So I'm going to, let's see, stop recording. There we go.